Welcome to Age of Steel and Fire, where modern warfare meets raw power. Tanks, tactics, and thunder. Just 27 days after taking office, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu announced his resignation. A shocking decision, yet not entirely unpredictable, as it marks the climax of a simmering political crisis that has gripped France for nearly 2 years. The newly formed government collapsed before it could even begin functioning. Parliament is now paralyzed. President Emmanuel Macron, once seen as a symbol of European reform, faces a daunting challenge: how to maintain control when public trust is eroding and opposition parties are gaining ground. So what caused a government to fall apart in less than a month? Is this the result of a political system losing its direction? And more importantly, where will this crisis lead France? Could it shake the foundations of the European Union itself? In today's video, we'll peel back the layers of this crisis, from its root causes and political fallout to the possible scenarios that lie ahead. To understand why Sébastien Lecornu's government collapsed so quickly, we need to look back at the turbulent political landscape France has faced over the past 2 years. After the 2022 parliamentary elections, President Emmanuel Macron lost his absolute majority. This forced him to constantly negotiate with opposition parties to pass key legislation, especially on pension reform, immigration, and the national budget. Under Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne, the government faced massive protests, particularly in 2023 when it pushed through pension reforms without a parliamentary vote. That move sparked fierce backlash from citizens and left-wing parties. By 2024, the government had entered a state of political stagnation, unable to pass major laws, while public trust continued to erode. Lecornu's appointment in September 2025 was seen as a fresh start, but in reality, it exposed just how deeply fractured the French political system had become. On September 9, 2025, Sébastien Lecornu was officially appointed Prime Minister of France, succeeding Elisabeth Borne at a time when the government was losing its grip on Parliament. Lecornu was expected to bring stability, thanks to his background in defense and close ties to President Macron. But less than a month later, on October 6th, he abruptly resigned, just 1 day after announcing his new cabinet. What's striking is that Lecornu's cabinet never had a chance to function. Opposition parties, especially from the left and far right, fiercely criticized the ministerial lineup, calling it a technocratic cabinet lacking representation. His resignation came right before Parliament was set to debate the 2026 national budget, one of the most critical legislative items of the year. Lecornu's departure stalled the legislative process and left President Macron in a reactive position, unable to push forward key strategic decisions. This wasn't just a personal failure. It was a clear sign that France's political system is facing a structural crisis, where fragmented power makes it nearly impossible for any prime minister to maintain long-term stability. The current political crisis isn't just the result of one man's resignation. It's a clear reflection of deep-rooted structural issues within France's political system. First, the Fifth Republic grants significant power to the president, but doesn't guarantee stability in Parliament. When the president lacks a majority, as Macron has since 2022, every decision becomes a cycle of negotiation, compromise, and delay. Second, political fragmentation is more pronounced than ever. France's parties no longer fall neatly into left-right categories. Instead, they've splintered into smaller factions with divergent ideologies and interests, making coalition building extremely difficult. Third, public trust in institutions is eroding. Massive protests, especially against pension reforms, show that citizens no longer feel represented by their leaders. Social discontent is spreading, creating a fragile political environment. And finally, Lecornu, despite his competence, was placed in an unwinnable position. He lacked time, support, and political space to enact meaningful reforms. That's why his tenure is now seen as a failed experiment in the eyes of the public. Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu's resignation wasn't just a political shock. It triggered a cascade of serious consequences across France's entire governing apparatus. First, the legislative process came to a halt. The 2026 national budget, a cornerstone bill, couldn't be debated, leaving public spending, social welfare, and investment programs in limbo. Second, President Emmanuel Macron was left in a reactive position. He couldn't immediately appoint a successor without parliamentary consensus, which remains deeply fractured. This weakened his standing on the international stage, especially in negotiations with the EU and NATO. Third, opposition parties seized the moment to ramp up pressure. The Socialist Party, PS, and the Greens, ELV, called for a temporary coalition government, while far-right groups like RN demanded early elections. Finally, public trust in leadership is eroding. Recent polls show a sharp decline in government approval, while support for institutional reform is on the rise. These reactions make one thing clear. The crisis isn't just about the absence of a prime minister. It's about a deeper collapse of confidence in the entire political system. This isn't the first time France has faced political instability. But what makes the current crisis uniquely severe is the speed and scale of the collapse. In the past, France has weathered turbulent premierships. In 1995, Alain Juppé faced the largest wave of strikes since World War II when he attempted pension reforms. Despite fierce opposition, he remained in office for nearly 2 years. In 2020, Edouard Philippe resigned after losing support from President Macron, but he completed his term with several notable reforms. Compared to those cases, Sébastien Lecornu's 27-day tenure is unprecedented. It highlights that today's crisis isn't just about leadership or policy. It's about a breakdown in institutional trust and power dynamics. While previous crises retained some degree of stability, this time the government is nearly paralyzed. That's why experts are calling it a total crisis, one that affects not just politics, but also public confidence, representation, and governance capacity. France's political crisis isn't just a domestic issue. It's sending shockwaves across the international stage. As a pillar of the European Union, France plays a key role in shaping decisions on economics, defense, and diplomacy. With its government paralyzed, high-level EU negotiations are being delayed, especially on the common budget and energy policy. Within NATO, France is a leading voice on European defense strategy. The absence of a stable prime minister has raised concerns among partners like Germany, Italy, and Poland about regional security coordination. Financial markets have also reacted negatively. The euro has shown slight weakness, and international investors are beginning to question the stability of the eurozone. Most notably, in a world already grappling with instability, from the war in Ukraine to U.S.-China tensions, France's crisis removes a key anchor of Western political and diplomatic leadership. In short, this crisis isn't just shaking France, it's forcing Europe to ask a hard question. Can its current political systems withstand the global turbulence ahead? France's political crisis isn't just a short-term event. It's a signal that the system itself may be in need of deep structural reform. In the short term, President Macron faces a tough choice. Either find a prime minister capable of building a coalition, or dissolve parliament and call for early elections, a risky move. In the long run, France must reconsider its power model. How to balance presidential authority with parliamentary representation. How to ensure citizens feel their voices truly matter in national decision-making. Looking ahead to 2026, without bold changes, France may continue to spiral into instability, with short-lived governments, prolonged protests, and a diminished role on the global stage. But crisis also brings opportunity. A chance to reform, to listen to the people, and to build a stronger democracy. The question is, will France's leaders have the courage to seize it? Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please share it and leave a comment. Who do you think will be France's next prime minister? And can the country overcome this crisis?